Greetings, friends, and welcome back to Scripture and Prophecy. I'm your host, Sean. It is Friday, March 30th, 2018. And today we are reading from Exodus again for the second time this week. And the reason why we're doing that is because we happen to be upon chapter 12, which deals with the Passover and the Exodus and the final plague. And just so happens that this weekend is the Passover time period, as well as the Resurrection Sunday, which is, as you know, if you've been a Christian for more than 5 minutes, is a big celebration this time of year when we celebrate and reflect on and memorialize and remember the resurrection of Jesus Christ, our Savior. And if I have time this weekend, Lord willing, I'm going to do a podcast talking about that as well. It's a very foundational pillar to our faith. Paul actually says, without the resurrection, we don't have anything. And if Christ hasn't been risen from the dead, then we are to be pitied among all people. And so it's very, very crucial and important to our faith. And the Passover here that we're getting ready to read about, we have to remember is a foreshadow. We have to remember that everything points to Messiah. And I think sometimes, especially in communities where we heavily study the Hebrew language and things like that, I think sometimes we forget, which is the danger involved. We forget that these things are all about Messiah. And we get into arguments and debates that we need not have. And so the Passover here, the spotless lamb that would be sacrificed, and the blood that would cause the death angel to pass over, that all is a foreshadow to our Messiah, who bled, who was spotless without sin and died for us. And so let's keep that in our hearts and our memory as we study this. So we're going to read Exodus chapter 12 today, dealing with the Passover. As far as calendar is concerned, I don't fight or get in debates about these things, because I think, again, they are a foreshadow, and I don't think anybody has it all figured out. But I typically go to the Root Awakening for the calendar, and according to that site, Passover starts Sunday night at sundown. And so it just so happens that you can celebrate the whole thing in one day. You can be reflecting on Passover, you can be reflecting on resurrection this weekend. All right, without further delay, let's just dig in and take a look at Exodus chapter 12. Exodus chapter 12, verse 1. And the Lord spake unto Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying, This month shall be unto you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year to you. Speak ye unto all the congregation of Israel, saying, In the 10th day of this month they shall take them every man a lamb, according to the house of their fathers, a lamb for an house. And if the household be too little for the lamb, let him and his neighbor next unto him his house take it according to the number of souls. Every man according to his eating shall make your count for the lamb. Your lamb shall be without blemish, a male of the first year. Ye shall take it out from the sheep or from the goats. And ye shall keep it up until the 14th day of the same month, and the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill it in the evening. And they shall take of the blood and strike it on 2 side posts, and on the upper doorpost of their houses, wherein they shall eat it. And they shall eat the flesh in that night, roast with fire and unleavened bread. And with bitter herbs they shall eat it. Eat not of it raw, nor sodden at all with water, but roast it with fire, his head and his legs, and with the putrents thereof. And ye shall let nothing of it remain until morning. And that which remaineth of it until the morning ye shall burn with fire. And thus shall ye eat it, with your loins girded, and your shoes on your feet, and your staff in your hand, and ye shall eat it in haste. It is the Lord's Passover. All right, real quick. We might wonder, why do they have to have their loins girded and their shoes on their feet and a staff in their hand? And why do they need to eat it with haste? And the reason for that, I believe, and I believe I have to give credit to maybe Nehemiah Gordon. I think I might have heard him talking about this. The reason why is because, the Egyptians were going to come that night and force them out. Okay? The Egyptians were going to come before the Passover was really even over and say, come on, get out of here, because of this last plague that's about to happen upon them. And they're going to be rushed out. So the picture, the metaphor that you're looking at here is that they had to be ready to go, which is also a foreshadow of how we are to approach these days right now, how we're to approach it spiritually. Ready to go, shoes on your feet, staff in your hand, ready to go at that moment when you have to go. This is why Jesus is always talking about, be ready. I come at a time that you think not. Keep watch, be ready, don't fall asleep. The Son of Man, is going to come like a thief in the night. It's going to happen in a time that you least expect. Be ready, be ready, be ready. This is that same picture. The Israelites are being told, this is how you need to prepare the meal. You need a spotless lamb, and you need to eat it with your shoes on and your staff in your hand, because when it's time to go, it's time to go, and you got to be ready in that moment. And there's so much spiritual application to this. This is how we wait on Messiah, ready to go, watching, always ready, always prepared. Everybody thinks they've got it figured out about the timelines of the end days and how it's going to happen and what's going to happen first and what's going to happen here. And I'm telling you, the Lord is going to show up one day, and you're going to have to be ready to go. There's going to be another great exodus in these last days. And you have to be prepared, ready to go. And so that, I think, is the application and the spiritual application, and I think that's what's taking place here. Moving forward. Well, I should also say that it's also believed that the lamb is brought into the house and it lives with the people, for a while now, before it's executed. And the idea is that people would get attached to the lamb, right? They begin to love the lamb. The children begin to love the lamb. And it's to show you that sin cost life. Death is the penalty for sin, bloodshed. Let's move forward. Verse 12. Or let me just read verse 11 again. And thus shall ye eat it, with your loins girded, your shoes on your feet, and your staff in your hand, and ye shall eat it in haste. It is the Lord's Passover, for I will pass through the land of Egypt this night. And I will smite all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast, and against all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgment. I am the Lord. And the blood shall be to you for a token upon the houses where you are. And when I see the blood, I will pass over you, and the plague shall not be upon you to destroy, and I will smite the land of Egypt. You see, when you're covered in the blood, you're passed over for the judgment. And that is the good news of Jesus Christ. Those of us who have been washed in the blood, right? Who've been covered in the blood of that sacrifice of a lamb without spot or blemish, who knew no sin, but became sin for us. When you're covered with that, you do not have to face the judgment. Verse 14, and this day shall be unto you for a memorial, and you shall keep it as a feast unto the Lord throughout your generations. You shall keep it as a feast by an ordinance forever. 7 days shall you eat unleavened bread. Even the first day you shall put away the leaven out of your houses, for whatsoever eateth leavened bread from the first day until the 7th, that soul shall be cut off from Israel. And of course we have the Feast of Unleavened Bread that starts with Passover and goes on for 7 days. And the idea is that leaven represents sin. Paul makes the analogy that, a little bit of leaven leavens up the whole loaf, right? And it's this idea about, memorialize the Passover. Remember what God has done. Remove the sin from your life. That's the spiritual application of unleavened bread. Verse 16, "And the first day there shall be a holy convocation, and the seventh day there shall be a holy convocation to you. No matter of work shall be done in them, save that which every man must eat. That only may be done of you. And you shall observe of the feast of the unleavened bread, for it is a selfsame day have I brought your armies out of the land of Egypt. Therefore you shall observe this day in your generations by an ordinance forever. In the first month, on the 14th day of the month, at even, you shall eat unleavened bread until the 21st day of the month at even. 7 days shall there be no leavened bread found in your house, for whosoever eateth that which is leavened, even that soul shall be cut off from the congregation of Israel, whether he be a stranger or born in the land. You shall eat nothing leavened, in all your habitation shall ye eat unleavened bread." Then Moses called for all the elders of Israel, and said unto them, "Draw out and take you a lamb according to your families, and kill the Passover. And you shall take a bunch of hyssop, and dip it in the blood that is in the basin, and strike of the lintel and the 2 side posts with the blood that is in the basin. And none of you shall go out at the door of his house until morning. For the Lord will pass through to smite the Egyptians. And when he seeth the blood upon the lintel and on the 2 side posts, the Lord will pass over the door, and will not suffer the destroyer to come in unto your houses to smite you. And you shall observe this thing for an ordinance to thee and to thy sons forever. And it shall come to pass, when you become to the land which the Lord will give you, according to as he has promised, that ye shall keep this service. And it shall come to pass, when your children shall say unto you, What mean you by this service? That ye shall say, It is the sacrifice of the Lord's Passover, who passed over the houses of the children of Israel in Egypt, when he smote the Egyptians, and delivered our houses. And the people bowed the head and worshipped. And the children of Israel went away, and did as the Lord had commanded Moses and Aaron, so did they. And it came to pass that at midnight the Lord smote all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh that sat on his throne, and to the firstborn of the captive that was in the dungeon, and of all the firstborn of the cattle. And Pharaoh rose up in the night, he and all his servants and all the Egyptians, and there was a great cry in Egypt. For there was not a house where there was not one dead. And he called for Moses and Aaron by night, and said, Rise up, and get you forth from among my people, both ye and the children of Israel, and go, serve the Lord of you as you have said. Also take your flocks and your herds, as you have said, be gone, and bless me also. I find that interesting. Here Pharaoh's done nothing but reject all of this. And then as he's begging Moses to leave, he's also begging for a blessing. He's finally understanding who the true God is. Verse 33. And the Egyptians were urgent upon the people that they might send them out of the land in haste, for they said, We will all be dead men. And the people took their dough before it was leavened, and their kneading troughs being bound up in their clothes and upon their shoulders. And the children of Israel did according to the word of Moses. And they borrowed of the Egyptians jewels of silver and jewels of gold and raiment. And the Lord gave the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians, so that they lent unto them such things as they required, and they spoiled the Egyptians. In other words, friends, they left Egypt with a lot more than what was just theirs. They left with gold and silver and riches and anything that they might need, because they found favor. God gave them favor in the sight of the Egyptians. The Egyptians, the common people, they saw what was going on, and they gave their goods to the children of Israel. Verse 37. And the children of Israel journeyed from Ramesses to Sukkot, about 600,000 on foot that were men besides children. And a mixed multitude went up also with them, and flocks and herds, and even very much cattle. So when I see that a mixed multitude also went up with them, I believe that that some of the Egyptians opted to go with the Israelites and convert and be believers and be worshipers of the one true God. Verse 39. And they baked unleavened cakes of the dough which they brought forth out of Egypt. For it was not leavened, because they were thrust out of Egypt and could not tarry, neither had they prepared for themselves any victual. Now the sojourning of the children of Israel who dwelled in Egypt was 430 years. And it came to pass at the end of the 430 years, even the selfsame day it came to pass that all the host of the Lord went out from the land of Egypt. It is a night to be much observed unto the Lord for bringing them out of the land of Egypt. This is the night of the Lord to be observed of all the children of Israel in their generations. And the Lord said unto Moses and Aaron, This is the ordinance of the Passover. There shall no stranger eat thereof. But every man's servant is bought for money. When thou hast circumcised him, then shall he eat thereof. A foreigner and a hired servant shall not eat thereof. So in other words, what the Lord was saying here is that strangers are not allowed to eat of the Passover. But if you have a servant and he's been circumcised, then he can eat. In one house shall it be eaten. Thou shalt not carry forth aught of the flesh abroad of the house, neither shall you break a bone thereof. All the congregation of Israel shall keep it. And when a stranger shall sojourn with thee, and will keep the Passover of the Lord, let all his males be circumcised, and then let him come near to keep it. And he shall be as one that is born in the land, for no uncircumcised person shall eat of it thereof. And of course now, we know that that is a foreshadow again of what God would do later, which he would circumcise the heart, which is prophesied in the prophets, and of course we know that to be true now. Verse 49. One law shall be to him that is homeborn, and unto the stranger that sojourneth among you. Thus did all the children of Israel, and the Lord commanded Moses and Aaron, so did they. And it came to pass the selfsame day that the Lord did bring the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt by their armies. And that is chapter 12 in the story of the Passover. And I pray that it blessed you this morning. And I hope I did a good job of just pointing to Messiah, because, that's what it's all about, folks. That's our mission. Sometimes we wonder, what's the purpose of our life? The purpose of our life is to point to Messiah. That's our purpose. That's our mission while we're here. And, sometimes I'm guilty and others are guilty of getting lost in religion and forgetting that we have a relationship with the Savior. And he deserves to be praised, and we need to be pointing to him, because as he said, these things are foundation to our faith. Christ said, all these things were written about me. They all point to him, and we can find him in all of it. Well, Lord willing, like I said, I'll be back hopefully sometime this weekend to record something short for Resurrection Sunday. Also, I've recorded the first two videos for the Hebrew, the Biblical and Modern Hebrew course for beginners, is what I'm calling it. And I did a short introduction video, just talking about it and showing a few resources, recommended resources, and then I recorded the first video where I'm teaching the first 5 consonants along with a couple of vocabulary words and a vowel. So all that's been recorded. The goal is to get that edited and up next week. And in the introduction, I describe how it's going to shake out for everyone. If you're a subscriber, and if you're not, if you're a supporter of the show, I should say, and if you're not a supporter of the show, how you go about having access to videos. But the first 2 are going to be available for everyone right out of the gate. And so that should be up sometime next week. It's just a matter of me getting those videos edited. And so I would guess, Lord willing, that I would get them edited on Tuesday and they would be up by Wednesday. All right. Peace and grace be with all of you. And until next time, God bless.